So, I challenged myself to make 3 games in a week. As a total Unity beginner, I definitely did not struggle with that challenge. Welcome to my weekly appreciation-seeking journey. This week's theme, 3 games in 1 week. This story begins with me practicing my pixel art. I was learning how Unity works for 2 weeks now, and it felt like it was time to create my dream game. I was already writing the story and drawing concept art for the enemies, when I realized something. Up to this point, I was only studying different mechanics, and I have not made a single game. So as a practice, I decided to challenge myself to make 3 games, which were semi-nostalgic for me. Flappy Bird was my magnum opus. It had all the hallmarks of a classic: terrible controls, repetitive gameplay, and endless frustration. Just like a good game should be. So, I decided to recreate it. In order to not get sued or anything, the twist to my game was that it was an unstable helicopter, and not a pixelated creature with wings that looks like it's made out of construction paper and bubble gum. Because a helicopter passing through pipes in the air makes more sense than a bird, I guess. Added all of the usual components like a rigid body and a collider. I created a simple movement script, and it was time to see if everything was working the way it was supposed to. As you can see, the the helicopter is moving up and down, but not forward. Which, of course, is intentional. You see, endless runners, which Flappy Bird is as well, are a type of video game where the objective is to run as far as possible without falling or crashing. However, the character moving forward is just an illusion. You can imagine it, like the player is running on a treadmill, and obstacles are thrown at him. There is probably a joke how this is a metaphor for life, which is throwing challenges at you and you are getting nowhere. But, yeah, anyways, Flappy Bird. I created a simple scene and added the pipes. The 2 pipes are held within an empty game object, and between them I have placed an edge collider, which is set to be a trigger. The idea is that I wanted to have an on-trigger function, which is going to add points to my player every time that it is activated. Also, as learned previously, I add materials to my platforms, with 0 friction, so that my player does not get stuck. Next step was making the pipes movement script, which is just making them constantly move to the right, and not up and down along with the bird, which they did the first time. With that done, I created a prefab for my pipes, which was going to be used as reference for the spawner that I was going to create. I thought I finished the spawner script, and that's when all hell broke loose. Yep, something with my code was messed up, but I managed to fix it, and all that I was missing was a little random offset every time the pipes are created. Before that, I created a collider at the end of my screen, which was going to destroy the pipes whenever they touch. As you can see, it worked first try. Also, I managed to apply the random offset to the pipes, and now, it required more for me than flying in a straight line. Oh, you are wondering what's in the top right corner of my screen. Nothing much, I just managed to defeat my arch nemesis, the UI, and now the player's score is displayed. I did a couple of other adjustments, like stopping the pipes, the spawner, and the player from moving whenever I crash. The last thing I needed was a game over screen with a working restart button. This was actually not that hard. I adjusted the script for the button, and set the game over screen object to active whenever I collided with a pipe. I added clouds, basically with the same logic that I used for the spawner and the pipe movement, but the clouds had no colliders, they were just decoration to convey a sense of speed.
And there you have it!
Flappy Bird ripoff, check. The next game that I wanted to copy recreate, was a mobile game from my childhood called Bloxx. The idea of the game is that you are supposed to stack apartments on top of each other, and thus providing roof for the homeless, which are invading the building, as soon as you build it. Now, I thought that this was going to be simple, and oh boy, was I wrong. I set up the scene with the main two objects. I even got the movement of the block down, moving left and right, and falling whenever I pressed the spacebar. The issue that I continuously faced was that the collision of the block with other objects was detected a lot of times, and I spawned a block whenever that happened. The result is basically this. I had an effective popcorn machine, but that was not what I intended. No matter what I tried, I was not able to fix it. The issue got so bad, that my Unity crashed a couple of times. I started the project over a couple of times. I was getting desperate. That's when, I asked the only person that ever supported me, and was honest with me, if I was stupid. To which my mother replied, yes. But that has never stopped you. And so I sat down, and began researching. It did not take me long to find a great tutorial, in which the solution to my issues was introduced. In Unity, the invoke method is used to execute a function or method after a specified time period has passed. That's how I managed to execute the block spawning, the camera move, and the game restart functions in the way that I wanted, without crashing Unity. The end result was this bad boy. I had proper block spawner and a moving camera, that moved up after a certain amount of blocks was placed. So yeah, I did not thought of the solution by myself, but I still have a lot to learn. That's why I want to thank the Absolute Units, who gave me advices and support from the previous episode. Yes Russell, you are. And so, it was time for the final game that I wanted to make. As you have already seen, it is Doodle Jump, and it was an absolute pleasure. The one new thing that I wanted to try, was adding sound to my game. My own unique twist to the game was that the platforms, were pickles, which for some reason I always thought was the case. I made sure to create a prefab of the platforms, because I knew that later on, I was going to need a lot of them. Also, for the first time in my life, I did not forget to lock the Z-axis. Next step was creating a bouncy material for my character, for obvious Doodle Jump reasons. Added it to the character's rigid body, and voila, we have set the foundations to our game. Something useful that I learned was that, pass-through platforms are created using an edge collider with platform effector. I wrote a simple movement script and was ready to test if the game was working as expected, which from the looks of it, it did. Something cool that I learned was that the platforms also have a script which applies instant force to the player whenever the two objects collide. This is how jump pads are made. And yep, I created the script, which instantiated 300 platforms, which are constrained by the values that you see here. Also, as you can see, I created a scoring system, which tracked the highest point that the player reached. In order to round it up, I used a mathf round to end, and it did the job. Slapped a collider beneath the camera which activated the game over a screen that I created, and I was ready to add the sound to my game. Here's the banger that I chose for the background music.
Nice.
Not sure why I have not added sound to my games previously. It's so easy. You need something to trigger it, this piece of code, an audio source, and an audio listener, which is usually attached to your camera, and that's it. Here is the end result. Was it worth spending a whole week making those games? Absolutely, I learned so much. You need to treat your games like they are a piece of art. When drawing a painting, the artists are breaking every object into simple shapes. I think this is my main take from this whole challenge. Please tell me if you have an idea for another in the comment section. Also, I passed my initial goal for this channel, for which I am sincerely grateful, and it's time for the next one. So if you would like to follow my average journey of becoming a game dev, subscribe, like and share.